I'm going to ask the people at the table to please turn on your microphones so this is a larger audience so that we have the opportunity to be heard by everybody out there who's here to listen. Today is July 10th. We're starting the meeting exactly at 7:30. I'd like everybody to stand, if you will, to join us with the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Dale, if you would.
Council President Healy.
Here.
Council Vice President Collins.
Here.
Councilman DeCruz.
Here.
Councilwoman Gledhill.
Here.
Councilman Vealy.
Here.
All members present.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is item number 4, which is the approval of the minutes from the previous meetings, which would include the work session of June 26, 2017, and also the regular session on June 26, 2017. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve agenda item 4A and B.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any abstentions? Seeing none, motion carries. Item number 5, I move forward to the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the items on the consent agenda?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Seeing no opposition, motion carries. What I'd like to do at this time is move to item 13, which is new business. Under item A, a resolution adopting a proclamation in honor of Sergeant Joyce Comstock upon her retirement from the South Kingstown Police Department, and it reads as follows. Would you like to stand? No, but you... Thank you. Whereas Sergeant Joyce Comstock joined the South Kingstown Police Department on August 22, 1984, and served a total of 32 years and 8 months until her retirement on May 3, 2017. And she was the first South Kingstown female officer to train at the Rhode Island Municipal Police Training Academy and to be promoted to the rank of sergeant. And whereas her calm and pragmatic demeanor aided in the supervision of other members of the department and in securing the confidence of the citizens of this town at large. And whereas the South Kingstown Police Department and the town of South Kingstown have been privileged to have someone as experienced and capable as Sergeant Joyce Comstock, who has demonstrated the highest professional standards and dedicated service to the town and its people. Now, therefore, we, the Town Council of the town of South Kingstown, do hereby acknowledge the substantial contributions made by Sergeant Joyce Comstock to the well-being and safety of our entire community, and we extend best wishes for a happy, healthy retirement and much success in all of her future endeavors. Thank you.
Motion to approve item 13A.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Joyce, that's a tough act to follow. Sorry. Moving on. Let's move on to item number 7, which is a public hearing to consider the expansion of the Diane Drive special sewer area by adding an additional dwelling unit associated with the tax assessor's plat 24-1 lot 26, or a portion thereof, into the Diane Drive special sewer area, subject to the terms and conditions that have been set forth in the Town Code Charter 19 Utilities, Article 2, Wastewater Management, Section 19146. Special area sewer assessments, fees, and user charges. Do we have anybody who would like to speak?
Let me give some background on this. The Diane Drive Special Sewer District was established back in 2005. At that time, 25 lots were a component of that district. They included Diane Drive, Bertha Avenue, and Alternate Avenue. What's being requested tonight is to provide a parcel which was joined to be unjoined to allow an additional building unit to be allowed on that property. To do that requires the council to hold a public hearing, which was duly scheduled for this evening, and to be able to provide authorization for the expansion of that district by that one building lot. This is the same type of action that was allowed by ordinance, which allowed for a subdivision of 9 lots to be allowed into the system after the initial sewer district had been established. To be able to have this lot brought into the sewer district, the property owner will be required to pay the initial $18,069, which was the initial assessment for each of the houses that were going to be serviced by that sewer system, and the interest expense associated with what the cost of living increase has been since the inception of the district in 2005 and today. He will also be required to pay the normal $1,800 connection fee to the system and any other requirements that are necessary based on the engineering design plans that have been submitted to the Public Services Department. What we're asking the council to do is to provide authorization for the allowance of that additional lot to be added to the sewer district as presented on tonight's agenda. Gentleman is here this evening. I'm not sure what information you'd like to provide the council.
No, thank you for your time. My name is John Gianpietro. I am the owner of the property.
And you're in full support of the request to have this added to the district?
Yes, thank you, I am.
Did you have any other comments that you'd like to make in terms of this project, or you're here just to give us your...
Well, certainly, I'm asking for this second sewer assessment, so I came more in case you had any questions for me.
The sewer assessment is to add an additional separate dwelling on a separate new lot?
Currently, there are 2 lots deeded together on Plat 24-1, Lot 26, and it's an R10 zoning. So in my discussions with Jeff O'Hara, it's either zoned properly for a duplex, as it's deeded today as 2 lots, has the necessary square footage, or, according to Mr. O'Hara, the lot could be split into 2 single-family lots. There's one sewer assessment already in place. In either case, I would need the second sewer assessment.
Anybody else like to speak on behalf of this at the open public hearing right now? Seeing none, do we have any discussion at the table?
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing if there's...
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
And then we would need to move on to a second motion.
Well, make...
Okay. I'll make a motion that we approve item 7A as state... how do we do that with the stating? Sorry? Okay. To expand the Diane Drive special sewer area by adding an additional dwelling unit associated with Tax Assessor Plat 24-1, Lot 26.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition at the table? Seeing none, good luck.
Thank you for your time. And can I assume that this decision will be documented in the meeting minutes?
This will be documented.
Great. Thank you.
Moving on to item number 8A, a resolution adopted June 13th, 2017 by the South Kingstown School Committee in opposition to a proposed legislative initiative entitled the Marijuana Regulation, Control, and Taxation Act. It's received and placed on file, and the council further directs as follows.
I make a motion that we put this item on file.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Seeing no oppositions, this motion carries. Moving on to 8B. This is a communication from the South Kingstown Immigration Task Force and others concerning the adoption of a local immigration protection ordinance. We have received this correspondence, placed on file, and the council further directs. I think, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I think we discussed it in the work session quite a bit, and there were a couple things that I think Steve wanted to point out before we get into discussion in terms of this being an ordinance, so we don't have the ability to pass it tonight.
I think the main thing is to place on the record the fact that the town council does not have the legal authorization to enact an ordinance on the night that it is introduced, and that any discussions that the council has tonight is a general discussion, and the council would have to do an order of notice with full advertising in the newspaper before a public hearing could be conducted to consider that ordinance. The other point that I raised in the pre-session was that in advance of any advertising for an ordinance consideration or a resolution consideration, the council should give consideration to having that ordinance or resolution reviewed in detail by the solicitor's office to ensure that they're comfortable with what's being drafted for council consideration in advance of it being advertised. So I wanted to make it clear that the council didn't have the opportunity, not because you don't desire to, but rather because the charter that the town operates under requires ordinances to go through a public hearing process.
Steve, I have a question, and Mike, based on the fact that this was a communication, do we have to wait for comments from interested citizens to, if somebody would like to come up, or are they at liberty to speak tonight on this?
You certainly can hear from individuals.
Okay. I will open up the floor as consideration. There are a lot of people here, so if anybody would like to come and speak to this, we certainly welcome your comments, but I would have to say we would have to limit you to 3 minutes or less, because there are just too many people who may want to speak, and we have a whole entire agenda to get through tonight. So town charter says you can have 3 minutes or less, and if anybody would like to speak, I would ask you to come to the podium and address your name, and certainly we're willing to hear from you.
My name is Nessa Richmond, and my comments will be significantly shorter than 3 minutes. I'm a South Kingstown resident and a member of a small group of residents who are ACLU members, and we formed the South Kingstown Immigration Task Force, and we applaud the town council for passing the immigration resolution and believe that the next step is for the town council to pass an immigration ordinance. The ordinance, which was developed by the Rhode Island ACLU, would strengthen the South Kingstown Police Department's ability to avoid undue pressure from the federal level to enforce immigration laws, which is a federal responsibility and not a state one. We want to pass this ordinance to protect our immigrant communities and also to protect our police department. We're not seeking a reduction in the enforcement of immigration laws. The ACLU ordinance is worded carefully to make sure that appropriate communication and arrests will still happen. We want our local police to focus on prevention and solving local crimes, and we want them to have good rapport with all community members. We want immigrants to feel safe in our town when they need to report domestic abuse or another crime. So we want to proactively affirm that in our town, the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement does its job and the local police do theirs. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Timothy Murphy. I've been a South Kingstown resident for 33 years. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to address the council. As the council members know, the Solicitor Ursillo has recommended that the council reject the ordinance, so I'd like to address his recommendation. The recommendation rests on three main points: that the ordinance is unnecessary, that the town council already adopted an immigration protection resolution, and that the town already complies with federal laws regarding immigration enforcement. On the first point, we believe the ordinance is necessary because no state or town law addresses the increasingly common scenario of federal agents pressuring local police to enforce immigration law, including detaining people without judicial warrants. The job of our police officers is to protect and serve our town. They are not trained as immigration agents, nor should they be. On the second point, the resolution is a strong expression of the town's commitment to reject racial, ethnic, and religious discrimination. And this is the resolution that the town council passed in June. But a resolution is not binding. Now we should show the courage of our convictions by enshrining those principles in law. On the third point, Solicitor Ursillo notes that the town currently complies with federal immigration laws. Notably, he does not advise that passing the ordinance would change that. In fact, the ordinance specifically addresses that concern in Section 13, titled Affirmation of Compliance with Federal Law. Finally, Solicitor Ursillo does not point to any negative consequences to the town if the ordinance is passed. And in fact, the ordinance protects the town from negative consequences. The City of Providence was successfully sued in federal court by a woman unlawfully detained by the police at the request of immigration authorities. We don't want that to happen here. We expect that the Town Council will have many questions as it considers the ordinance. Members of the South Kingstown Immigration Task Force will do their best to answer them or to provide experts to address specific legal concerns. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Tia Beckman, and I have a couple of handouts. I support the ACLU immigration ordinance to be used by SK. It allows for the legal processes to continue with a neutral party oversight in the form of a judge's warrant. It allows the professional agencies involved to do the job they're trained for. This saves resources, prevents lawsuits, and keeps our community safer. But another professional group that I have concerns about that has not been mentioned is for our school district. Students, parents, and school employees need to focus on creating the optimal learning environment. Fear and anxiety have no place in our schools. I also believe in being proactive. I agree with the ACLU ordinance recommendation that the school develop their policies and procedures that function within the law regarding the collection and dissemination of student information, including student citizen status and handling of interactions with immigration officials. This protects the safety and well-being of the whole educational community. I have provided 2 articles. One is by CNN that summarizes how other educational communities are addressing this issue. And the other is an article by the American Immigration Council regarding the Supreme Court case Plyler versus Doe. This decision states that states cannot constitutionally deny students in education based on their immigration status. But what is of more interest to us at this point is that it has further commentary on the bad and possibly illegal policy of collecting and reporting immigration information, increased truancy, and among other topics. I hope you will support the South Kingstown School District in this endeavor, and I will be going to the school district itself. So thank you for this time to be able to share with you and your hard work for the betterment of the community. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Anybody else like to come up to the podium and speak? If so, please state your name.
My name is Harris Pitnoff. I live in West Kingston. I'm a registered voter, unaffiliated to party, and I just have a quick comment about the memorandum from Mr. Orsillo. It just seems a lot of the vague logic in the letter is really the legal basis for Mr. Orsillo's conclusions is not explicated in the memorandum. It's just his opinion. He states his opinion. It's unnecessary without really elaborating. And the letter ends with a statement, none of the other municipalities I represent has adopted this ordinance, which seems to be a statement that is neither ethically, legally, or morally germane. The City of Boston passed an ordinance in 2014, an ordinance establishing a Boston Trust Act. It is publicly embraced by the Commissioner of the City of Boston, Commissioner Edmonds, the Mayor of the City of Boston, Marty Walsh, the entire City Council. And I don't want to denigrate Mr. Orsillo's legal acumen, but I have to presume that the City of Boston has a city attorney and a legal staff who are as knowledgeable and as thoughtful as Mr. Orsillo, and they have found no objections to passing an ordinance that essentially ratifies the same positions that this immigration working group has taken in presenting the proposed ordinance to you folks. So I would just say the fact that somebody else hasn't taken any action in my world doesn't work. So I would just say do what's right, not because it's hard or easy, just because it's the right thing to do. So I just urge you folks to be thoughtful before saying no. It's easy for an attorney to default to simplicity and ease. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other comments?
Sorry, Nessa Richmond. I just forgot. We had a teach-in and we asked people to fill out postcards, and so I have a stack of about 35 postcards that are addressed to you, and I'd like to provide them to you to, to take a look at in whatever way that is appropriate to do.
If you would provide them to Dale, the town clerk, and she will make sure they're disseminated to us. Thank you. Do I have any more public comment? Anybody else want to come before the mic? Please come forward.
Jim O'Neill, Matunic. I do reject this request for the ordinance. And there's certainly a lot of good here, but what I am worried about here is a couple of situations. One, where you're always going to have a very difficult situation where your police have to react quickly to some unknown, a situation and unknown folks. Maybe some of them have been targets of ICE to apprehend at some point, which is a federal job. But how do you, on a close call situation with your local police, with their training, how do you put yourselves in their position when maybe they've got to take out the bad guy or make arrests across the board? Very difficult situation, but that's always going to happen. There's always going to be a situation like that. Second thing, which is very confusing, the state of Rhode Island just passed House Bill 5531, just passed a act, which the governor, I believe, signed, relating to motor and other vehicles electronic confirmation and compliance system, which my reading of the newspapers showed me the ACLU had a number of concerns about. And what this does is a system to make interstate vehicle insurance and registrations status available to law enforcement for automatic query at any time, so on and so forth. Number two, a system to provide interstate automobile and commercial vehicle insurance information to emergency medical service providers. Already I'm telling you that we have a conflict here. I'd love to see a blend between these two, but you have a surveillance ordinance here, which is going to, by their nature of the folks that maybe cannot afford insurance, etc., are going to be your same group, the ICE targets. So, I can't look at two dissimilar situations like this and be comfortable. So I would hope you'd reject this and maybe look at the a blending of a proper ordinance down the road that takes in the recent General Assembly and Governor signed legislation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I know there was a gentleman in the corner. Please come up and state your name as well.
Hi, my name is Joe Joback. I'm the director of Welcome House. And when I became aware of this ordinance, I wanted to publicly come tonight and just let you know that I am in support of it for a very practical reason. As director of Welcome House, we have a responsibility to protect the privacy of the individuals who seek our services. And by doing so, we build trust with the homeless community. In my course of being at Welcome House in the last 2.5 years, there have been a couple of people who have come to my attention that they were not American citizens. They were working, they were paying rent, they were abiding by the law. In one case, a gentleman was calling his mom back in Colombia, which he had fled the violence from 25 years ago, to assure her that he was safe and had a roof over his head. I didn't want to be in the position of having to stop those calls. To me, this ordinance helps me because I don't have to think about those kinds of decisions when people are inquiring about a bed, or if I find out that, in fact, someone is living under our roof who is not an American citizen. So for a very practical reason, I guess I feel that the trust in the community between Welcome House and the homeless community is a very high point. And I think it would be undermined if this ordinance was rejected. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Well, I'm sure that this is a topic that will be continued, and we are not able to pass the ordinance tonight, as you have been made aware of, due to the fact that it has to go before the public, and a public hearing will have to be done. But are there any comments here at the table? Because I would welcome any comments from the council, other council members as well.
I just wanted to say to the South Kingstown Immigration Task Force how insightful I found the sort of seminar that you guys held open to the public. I almost didn't go because I had my 2 kids with me, but you guys were very gracious in helping me entertain them while I listened, and it was super informative, and the turnout was incredible. So I think it speaks to how motivated this community is. I think sometimes we forget, living in a university community, how diverse it is and how many people we attract from other countries to come teach here, to learn here, that might only be here for a brief time, but decide that this is where they want to make their home. And I can understand and empathize with all the people that feel so passionately about this because it's something that they see and that they deal with. I know that when I watch the news, I think of this as a problem that's not really here because it's not at the forefront. We're not in some bustling city where we see this every day, but it does come across, and we do see it and we do encounter it. So I admire the passion. I've expressed my support for this exact initiative with the ACLU. I think it's wonderful. I do take into consideration Mike's opinion and his insight on it and his experience with other municipalities, and I would welcome some more feedback on that. If you could take a look at this ordinance and maybe tell us what is it specifically that makes you uncomfortable that we could revise or improve upon. I think that would be a wonderful step in the right direction.
I'd echo a lot of what Liz just had to say. I think, this is not an ordinance that I think that the council would pass in the belief that our own police department is failing to live up to these ideals. It's, if we chose to pass something like this, it would be an assurance that there would hopefully be no backsliding in the future for our community. I think the fact that such an ordinance is coming before us is really a testament to the extraordinary times we live in with a president who seems to believe he was elected emperor of our country and can govern by fiat. I think that that's against the founding principles of our country, many of which came from Rhode Island itself. In particular, I've been greatly alarmed by the president's tendency to scapegoat and demonize minority populations of all sorts, but immigrants in particular. I think this country was founded by immigration. I doubt there's anybody in this room who can't trace their lineage back to immigrants who came here. It's been a few centuries since my ancestors came over, but they were religious refugees at the time, being chased out of England. And it's terrible to see us sort of going back on that openness that allowed our country to grow and thrive at this point. So I think there's good reasons for us to pass an ordinance like this. I look forward to seeing what the solicitor has to say about how it can be improved, and then having a public hearing to decide it.
Just make a couple of quick comments. So the resolution was before us in March and was passed. I believe the request for an ordinance, I think, was in early April, and this council decided against it then. My feelings have not changed since then. And I don't want to tear the document apart. I mean, I'm sure there's good stuff in there. A couple of things, in my own opinion. I don't think that this council should be dictating to our police, what federal laws they should and shouldn't enforce, or what even state or local laws they should and shouldn't enforce. Having said all that, I think that, as has been said by many people, we are doing a lot of what this ordinance is asking for. So again, it was only 3 months ago, and my opinion has not changed. Thank you.
I also know that we have met with you in the past, and I believe it was March 27th, if I'm not mistaken, but I know it was March that we did approve the resolution. I, again, also would like to defer back to our police department, specifically some questions I have for Chief Jaber and to Mike, because I think we all know that our police officers, as Joe had suggested, are tasked to do the job that they have always been doing. So not that I don't see that this would change anything. I certainly see that the ordinance would probably make some changes, but I think the police department is doing a good job in respecting not only federal and state regulations, but they're also working very hard here in our local community. So I'd like to see this come to a public hearing, because I do understand all of your concerns, all of what you believe in. Obviously, you wouldn't be here tonight if you weren't feeling very strongly about this. So we as a council, we have 5 different personalities that represent our entire community, and we each have our own different perspectives. But the more information we can gather, then the better off we will be to make a decision regarding this. So I would like to have a few more questions answered before I give my amen at a public hearing. But I'm sure I can meet with you, Timothy, or I can meet with the chief and both of you.
I just had one more thing to say. Abel said it, I think, very well, but just to echo what everyone else said, by endorsing this ordinance as it is and sending it to the town solicitor is no way an indication of a lack of faith in our police department for the wonderful job they already do. They're wonderful. And I think Chief Jaber has made it very clear, too, what he expects of his police officers and how capable they are. So I would never seek to undermine them or make them uncomfortable. But I think that we're on the right track and we can find a way to make this work. So what I would do is make a motion to put item 8B, send it back to Mike Ursillo for a thorough review and some suggestions, and go from there.
I'd like to add to that real quick. My sentiments are the same, that our police department, they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. They're not doing what they're not supposed to be doing. So I can see their point or concern. I'd like to see maybe some dialogue between the police department and the task force to come up with concerns that either side has, and see if we can come to some compromise or understanding on both sides as to why this is important to our community. It's not an attack on the police department at all. There's a lot of people in our town that had issues. I think Bill is sitting over there in the corner. I think we had a conversation about at the university that there were people that were afraid to come to South Kingstown during this whole problem with the immigration. And one of the big things is that people don't realize is oftentimes our instructors at the university aren't citizens, they're holding green cards. I had a personal thing happen in one of my real estate offices where someone's wife got detained that was supposed to rent one of our apartments and ended up not renting the apartment because they were concerned about whether or not she was able to make it here. So I think we're talking about two different things in terms of at the national level versus our local law enforcement. ICE, that's their job. They can do their job, but I feel strongly that, our police department shouldn't be enforcing or feel like they have to enforce by federal mandate a immigration law.
We currently have a motion on the table. Do I have a second on that motion?
I'll make a second.
Thank you.
All
Have
those in-
some discussion.
Sure.
I was just wondering if it makes sense to schedule a public hearing now. How long do you anticipate that it would take to have feedback?
Abel, it's going to require advertising, et cetera. So I want the ability to go through and redline this for you. I mean, the enforcement section is written now is not a good section for the town because it basically says that your own police department could be sued for damages and attorney's fees against the town. So there are sections of this ordinance that need to be.
Right.
I want you to at least have the my input on certain sections of this ordinance in terms of, and then you'll make the policy decision as to whether or not you go forward with it. But I need the ability to give you my input. I am not sure if we're going to be able to have the ability to sit down with the police department and others, plus all my opinion, and get that all done by the August meeting.
No, yeah, right. I'm not suggesting that it be for the August meeting. I'm just...
But by the September meeting, I think that would be fair. And while I'm speaking, I do want to put this on the record. The cities of Providence and Boston have many ordinances on the books that this town of South Kingstown would not want to have on the books. So the fact that Boston and Providence have adopted similar ordinances doesn't mean that their legal counsel is any better, different, or worse than your legal counsel. And you all know you put more than one lawyer in a room and you're going to get many different responses. I chose to put in my memo the reference to other towns I represent because, as you all know, I represent a lot of other towns that are similar to South Kingstown, that's all. But I'm more than happy to go through this, give you my comments, and for you to have a full public hearing to decide which way you want to go with it.
Thanks, Mike.
Okay.
So, I'm sorry, clarify your motion again, please.
My motion was to put send item 8B back to Mike Ursillo for his comments and suggestions. And did you want me to amend it, Abel, to include scheduling a public hearing, or can we wait until we get that back?
We can wait for that.
Okay, that's it then.
Okay. Do we still have a second that carries the motion?
Yep.
I had seconded.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries. Okay. 8C is a communication dated June 29th, 2017 from Mark Spangler, Secretary of the Washington County Veterans Council announcing the organization's donation to fund the cost of a structural engineering analysis for the restoration of the World War I Memorial at Hazard School. It's received, and the town further directs.
We should probably wait till everyone...
Okay, things are quieting down. I know I just read item 8C, and it looks like we do have some communication. And if you'd like to come up to the podium and state your name and tell us a little bit about what you're doing.
Okay, my name is Mark Spangler, and I'm on the South Kingstown Veterans Memorial Commission, which is originally called the Saugatuck Memorial Commission, and the expansion has somewhat expanded the scope to include veterans monuments and memorials in South Kingstown, in addition to the Saugatuck Park Memorial. And as you may well know, the Hazard Memorial, which was created in the 1930s, is in dire need of repair. It's a very unique memorial. It commemorates the service of South Kingstown residents in the Revolutionary War all the way through the Great War at that time, and with their names. And it's almost unique, and I don't think there's any other memorial like this in the entire country, but it definitely needs some help. I'm also on the Washington County Veterans Council, and the letter that I sent to you gave you a short explanation of the council, but just for the people who aren't familiar with it, the Washington County Veterans Council is a 501c3 nonprofit corporation that was originally formed with the proceeds from the sale of the American Legion building on Kingstown Road, and that money has been managed by the council as a nonprofit organization, and the purpose of the council is to assist veterans and veterans organizations in funding matters. We are a funding organization, not a veterans service organization. But we do have representatives from the VFW, from the American Legion, from the Vietnam veterans, all of which are the local veterans service organizations. And in looking at the need for this the work to be done on the Hazard Memorial and our charter, which is to help funding of Veterans Matters, it seemed that it was a good fit for us to step up to the plate to at least fund the scope of work, so that once the scope of work is done, we'll know what we have to work with the Hazard School Memorial. And that through the commission and with Dale Holberton's assistance and with the town assistance, we got a scope of work proposal from Geisser Engineering, and the scope of work cost is $2,560. So the Washington County Veterans Council would like to, and has made a donation, and we'd like to make a formal presentation tonight to the town, $2,560 to support the funding of the scope of work project for the Hazard School Memorial. And I have with me Steve Stewart for the VFW and Jim Torgy, both members of the Washington County Veterans Council, and Jim's a long-standing member of the South Kingstown Commission, and Steve is also a member of the commission. So we have a check to the town of South Kingstown for $2,560, which we would like to present. Would anybody like it?
Of course.
The money has previously been donated and is put into a special funding account, and the proceeds will be managed by the town in payment for the scope of work that's being done on the memorial. The hope is that we can have an outline of what can be done with the memorial, and then we'll be able to go to the public at large and say, this is what we want to do, and we know it's going to take some more money to actually do the work. We're hoping we can get public money and maybe a little kick in from the town to get the work done in time for...
Could I make a recommendation real quick? Can we get the photo out of the way? Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm trying to get you publicity.
It's a reusable check.
You come on up.
Me?
No, he wants to take a photo of the check. He's been.
No, go ahead, please.
Want the check?
Nah, it's okay.
Oh, okay.
You know me, I'm never in the picture.
Sorry to interrupt.
That's right. There you go. All right. The 2 becomes a 3, right? Great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. The hope is that...
This is really great. What a nice tribute to all of the veterans in World War II, that monument. Thank you so much.
So I guess we need a motion from the table to accept the check from communication item 8C. So I'll make that motion, and I have a comment.
And I interrupted him during his presentation, so did you have something else?
No, not really. The only thing I wanted to say was that without Dale Holberton's assistance, we wouldn't even be this far. She's done tremendous amount of work on behalf of veterans, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to work with you.
So we have a motion and a second. I'd like to make a comment. I know that these funds will help expedite this so that we can get this hopefully done by the 100th anniversary. I'd like to just make a comment to the council that maybe we find the money in next year's budget to reimburse, because what they do with their money is pretty important.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just a comment.
Well said. We have a motion and a second, correct?
Yes.
Without further discussion, unless there's any further discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Seeing
Thank
no
you very much.
oppositions? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Moving on to item number 9. I know we've heard from a lot of citizens, but now is the time with comments from interested citizens. So if anybody has anything that they'd like to discuss, please come up to the podium and state your name.
Hi, David Flanders from the historic village of Curtis Corner. I wanted to bring up something that comes up all the time, and it's petty in respect to everything that we've heard this evening. But it's just the excessive noise that emanates from unmuffled motorcycles. And in part, it's a quality of life issue. And I mention that only because anytime there is any survey of South Kingstown residents, whether it be for the rewriting of the comp plan or anything like that, the majority of our citizens say the quality of life in this town is what keeps them here, what brought them here, why they live here. I would also mention that the level of noise coming from some of these motorcycles, if you're a pedestrian or a motorist with your windows down, is actually injurious to your hearing. And we don't need to get into measuring decibels or anything like that. I tried to figure, well, what's the deal? As motorists, we have to have operating mufflers. If your muffler is old, making noise, you get pulled over, you have to deal with it. Same with taillights and whatever. But motorcycles don't fall under that regard. So I said, I checked out Rhode Island general law, I checked out motor vehicle laws, and I found Rhode Island general law 312313 has been on the books since 1950, 67 years. It says, every motor vehicle shall at all times be equipped with a muffler in good working order and in constant operation to prevent excessive or unusual noise. I don't think this is a case where we have to have the police walking around with decibel meters. I think that, A, if there's a very loud motorcycle, it could be pulled over. It could be examined. It either has a muffler or it doesn't. And that's a very simple task. And I'm just wondering, two questions. Why hasn't this been enforced? And the second question is, will you, the town council or whomever, direct the police to begin enforcing this? Thank you.
So I have a comment, Dave.
Sure.
So there are designs of new mufflers, and it's not just motorcycles. It's on these small cars.
Yep.
That are brand new. And unless we get into a noise ordinance, and that's dicey, but maybe
Sure.
necessary, I don't know.
Okay, but if they have a legal muffler, that's one thing. If they literally do not have a muffler, then that's another story. So I'm just wondering if this can be, put to the forefront.
I think the only way to enforce it is if, number one, you have a police officer right there that hears it, or if people who are around take note of it and get the license plate, then it can be addressed to the local police, and they can certainly at that point go out and have a discussion or do whatever the parameters happen to be because of that. It might be a ticket or a fine or something of that nature. But if it is disconcerting to people, then your point is very well taken.
Well, actually, RIGL 312313 says that a muffler is required and that the fine is $85 and that they have 5 days in which to put one on. And that has been since 1999.
I just want to add one thing. I think I'd be a little concerned with our citizens trying to write down the license numbers, for concern for safety. Because if you're writing it down and they see you writing it down, it could cause an altercation.
Well, I'm just thinking that there are enough of these motorcycles that we all know what we're talking about, and that there are enough police patrol cars on that they see and hear these all the time. I would just like to have the police directed to pay attention to this. They hear them go by and don't do anything about it because that's been the way things have been done for so long. I mean, it's been on the books since 1950, and the motorcycles have been around since 1950 or before, and nothing has been done. But it's a quality of life issue. Yeah. It's very obnoxious. It's very disturbing. And like I say, if you're a pedestrian or driving around with your window down, it's actually injurious to your hearing.
Mr. Flanders, I live right here on Winter Street, so I don't see the volume of motorcycle traffic that you probably do, but our police chief is here tonight, and so I'm sure he's hearing your concerns and will relay your concerns accordingly. But I would be surprised if it wasn't something that was already on their radar. He's right behind you.
I'd be curious to know how many citations were given out in the last month, 2 months, 3 months, year.
Great.
Stick him up. He's behind you.
David Flanders.
Excuse me, could I just have you, if this has gone beyond public comment, so could I have a motion to add this item to the agenda, please?
Motion to add this item to the agenda.
Second.
So moved. I seconded. Sorry.
I'm just
those in
protecting
favor?
them, that's all.
Aye. Thank you, Mike.
Chief Joe Jaber, South Kingstown Police. I just so happen to be the traffic court prosecution officer as well. Good. So we probably have on average 100 tickets a week. As far as what...
Joe, I can't hear you. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. We probably write 100 tickets a week, at least.
Right into the mic.
Can you hear me? I'm sorry. Okay. Once again, we write about 100 tickets a week because I prosecute those. I'll be honest and say I don't see a lot of the muffler violations, and that's not because they don't want to write them for that. It's very difficult to catch them, and it's very difficult to prove. Many of you say no muffler. Well, a lot of times it's not that there's no muffler, they have a straight pipe. But stopping them and proving that, you mentioned a 5-day tag. Normally, that's separate from a summons. A 5-day tag would be given to a motorcycle with excessive noise, and then that person has 5 days to comply with that. He has to go to a mechanic, get it inspected, and then he sends that into the registry. That's not a summons. A summons would be different, just writing them for that statute that you mentioned. But the difficulty is proving the noise. A lot of people, especially on motorcycles, would contest that and say, well, how do you know that's too loud? Do you have a decibel meter? And, a police officer isn't a mechanic. He can only stop the vehicle, and of course, it's not going to be noisy when he stops it. But I guess my whole point is it's not that they don't want to do that. It's just very difficult to stop those people or catch them. I would suggest to you that whatever that area is, I will certainly have police officers monitor that area and maybe sit there for a while and see if they can stop some of these motorcycles with the loud mufflers. But as I say, if they contest it, then we have to bring we would have to bring in proof that muffler was too loud. So my point is, they're very difficult to prove, but we're out there, believe me.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a question?
Thank you.
I just want to make one comment. The other thing that the department's done is they're trying to provide better education. If you don't go down several of the streets, particularly those streets that are straightaways that we've had the most problem, Matunic Beach Road or Middlebridge Road, Tuckertown Road, we're putting the signs out indicating the need for control of the noise and asking for cooperation. Yes, we have 6 patrol cars out 24 hours a day, but that's to manage 64 square miles. And anytime there's an accident and we've got 2 to 3 cars tied up, our objective is for public safety before it is the inconvenience issue associated with the noise. We can continue to try to educate, but there's certain people that seem to enjoy that noise as long as it's behind them rather than in front of them. We'll continue to work with it, Dave, but that's not a problem that's going to be solved overnight. In fact, I've had some people asking us to close some of the turnarounds on Route 1 so that they don't have to hear the motorcycles accelerating as they go from north to south. So it's a problem that we have societal where we've got people that really have no respect for the common good. We'll continue to work with it, but I think education is probably as important to us as attempting to find them. One thing I do want to correct is a police officer can't issue a ticket unless they see the offense occur. So it's not a case where somebody can say, I got a license plate for you and this guy was speeding down Matunic Beach Road. It doesn't work that way. We have to have the officer who can swear to the fact that the thing occurred. The other thing I'll mention to you is that usually when you see one motorcycle, you see 5. And it's very difficult for a police officer to A, stop 5 motorcycles, and B, determine which of those 5 motorcycles was violating the noise requirements of the community. So understand there's a lot of issues that are at play here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Do we have any other comments? Please come up.
Good evening. Bill Rosen, Kingston. Having received my property tax bill recently, it occurred to me that with the state funding now in limbo, and hearing recently that the Department of Education has indicated that because of the situation with the state budget, that the $45 million that was intended to go into the new state budget was being frozen right at the moment, and there wasn't any guarantee that public schools and charter schools were going to receive their correct allotment in a retroactive manner. I was wondering how the town council might have to deal with the situation with your own budget in the coming days, and how that actually works at this level.
In view of the fact that our school system is losing $430,000, $450,000 in state support, I'm not sure that it's going to have impact on us, because none of that $45 million is, or the new monies that were coming in, would be going to the South Kingstown school system. And you indicated that you had gotten your tax bill. The tax bills were sent out this year based on no changes in the state budget. We were faced with a situation where either we sent out the tax bills as we traditionally do 1st of July, or if we were to hold those up, we would not have the bills going out till mid-August. If they went out at mid-August, it would give people possibly 2 weeks before the tax first quarter payment would be due. We felt that it was more appropriate for us to send out the tax bill as if no amendment took place, which actually did happen. Now, if the General Assembly does return or returns in January and does, in fact, approve the budget as presented by or approved by the House, then what we will be in a position of is we will have to provide abatements or credits for the 19-year budget based on the difference. The differences for the motor vehicles is 5% of what the assessment value was. So if you had a vehicle that was at $10,000 and you were taking 5% off of that value, you're taking off a very small dollar amount at $18 per thousand. We're assuming that the tax credit that the House bill will meet for South Kingstown on an average bill will be probably in the area of $6 to $18. I think many people would rather take that as a credit on the 18-19 bill, and if they don't and they want the money back this year, we'll issue them a check.
So essentially nothing's going to change.
I'm sorry?
Essentially nothing's going to change this year, and it might change the following year.
I think it would be most appropriate for us to be able to give the credit next year's bill, but I've got to wait and see what the General Assembly does.
Okay.
I don't think there'll be an impact as far as the schools bill, but right now everything is up in the air based on the way that budget was left.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening. Kenny Burke from Tift Hill. On Thursday, late afternoon, I sent an email request in to the town manager. I know it's too late to get onto the agenda, but I had asked for consideration for the soon-to-be formed Bike and Pedestrian Advisory Committee that the 4 applicants, myself included, that have applied and been interviewed get considered for appointment. The reason being is as the town goes forward with its comp plan updates, as the town considers TIP requests, and they continue with paving projects, we are anxious to start volunteering. And I think we inadvertently boxed ourselves in by setting a minimum number. It's not a bad thing to have a minimum number for committees, but we've been stuck at 4. And myself and other folks that have been have applied for this committee are working the crowd. We're trying to get people to apply. So I just wanted to throw that out there to you, and I'm not sure if you have any suggestions on how we might assist if it isn't feasible for us to get the committee formed.
And we will be discussing that under item number 12 for appointments. We actually had a conversation about that in our work session.
Okay.
And what we are looking to do, we'll get into the perimeters, but we're anxious to get it started as well.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else like to come to the podium to speak? Anybody here at the table?
I just wanted to give kudos to Terry and her team on the fireworks at Old Mountain Field. They were wonderful as usual, and the whole program seemed to go off without a hitch. So Thank you to Terry and to the police and EMS departments for the wonderful job they did in keeping everyone safe.
Annually, always a good job.
Mhm.
Anybody else? Steve, we can defer to you for town manager's report if you have any additional comments.
No, I was simply going to comment the same as far as thank Terry and her crew for really putting on another great display. As I mentioned to the council, one thing that we are going to have to look at in the future is prohibiting the use of drones within the field. This was a serious public safety problem at the last fireworks display. If any of those drones had come in contact with any of the projectiles of the fireworks and those had been deflected into the audience, we would have had a very serious problem. So I think what we're going to need to do is to ensure that that prohibition is part of our operating procedures in the future. Outside of that, the fireworks certainly were excellent. A couple of items I wanted to mention tonight is that the town has also received the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting again. This is many years worth of continued practice. We're still batting 1,000 as far as accepting the award. I want to thank the Finance Department and particularly Trish for the excellent assistance that she provides and the manner in which our finances are kept. There's a lot of reasons why we have a AA1 community, a lot of reasons why we can go with bonding that hopefully will come in at less than 2%. A lot of reasons on why we can manage systems on behalf of the University of Narragansett on multiple regional affairs and still have everybody comfortable with the methodologies that are employed. So I thank her for her dedication and continued work, and certainly look forward to her getting more work done in the future.
Is there any way that we could put something like that in the newspaper? Because I know in the business section you are allowed to put that kind of stuff in the paper and it doesn't cost anything, because I've done it for our business. Yeah. But it would be nice to see that in the local newspapers too.
I have a question for Steve too, before we move on.
Go ahead.
Steve, I was just curious if you got any feedback on that commerce grant that we didn't get. I know that we had applied for a grant for some of the initiatives that the EDC set forward, and unfortunately we didn't receive it, but we were going to solicit some feedback and see if we heard anything about what we could do to make ourselves more attractive.
There was a number of things that were in that grant, and again now I think we need to take a look at which items we can do within the budgetary constraints that we currently have. One of the things that we looked at is the highest priority that was, as it come in through the EDC, was a request for additional trash barrels on Main Street. They had multiple barrels that they wanted. I think what we're looking at is what's a reasonable number to expect that would need to be maintained. There was also questions as far as the times that the restrooms are going to be open. We'll put together something for the council to see on that. Some of the questions I think, or the suggestions were over the top. The idea of weekly or biweekly street sweeping. We're providing street sweeping, but on an appropriate basis. So we can take a look at that, but there are just a number of those things that we can do. But what we also have to look at is what are we doing for the other business districts as well?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because this isn't just Main Street. It has to be all of our business districts, and what is it that they need to be able to continue to prosper.
Right. Yeah, I was just thinking about the work session we had with the EDC, and we were all pretty enthusiastic about some of their findings, and I know they worked for a long time on the river study and some of the research that they did on what other communities are doing, and I just don't want to see that fade. I want to make sure it's at the forefront of some of our thoughts, and we can maybe make a move on some of the low-hanging fruit. I know some of the things were like wayfinding signs and stuff like that. I'd love to see how we could fit that in. Or maybe even set aside, a little bit of cash every year or some sort of plan to implement some of those ideas.
I think there's also a need for shared responsibility. And I think that the shared responsibility is what are the commitments that the businesses are making that obtain value from being on Main Street? And what are they providing to assist the town in terms of its endeavor for a more welcoming area?
Some of the things that we talked about with the EDC, though, were very low cost and I would think easier to do. So if you can get that, talking about how many trash barrels, maybe it isn't 20 and maybe it's 5 or...
But that's what I'm looking at
Yeah.
this point. We'll be putting something together, but again, some of the ideas as far as cutting back brush and all along pedestrian ways, you got invasive weed there that if you don't take it all out, it's going to be back in 3 weeks. It doesn't make a lot of sense. And then we've got to look at what the environmental regulations are with DEM. So there's a lot of those different things that on first blush seem simple, but they're not that simple
I get it.
when we start looking at them, or what the frequency of maintenance requirements are going to be. Certainly, anything the council wants, we can get done. But at the same time, we have to look at where does that work effort come from.
So one of my concerns originally with that meeting was that the specifically focusing just on Main Street because we have a lot of other business districts. And I think what we talked about was that we kind of had to start somewhere. So what do we pick, and what's reasonable, I guess is the question. So.
I just wanted to make sure that we remembered it and that we didn't, just because we didn't get the grant that we, let it fall away.
I just know because I have I work in Wickford, in North Kingstown, and I did go to the local businesses there. They don't have trash bins. They don't have town-provided trash bins whatsoever. They have a comfort station which has internal, in the restroom, trash bins, and there's only one trash receptacle that the businesses take turns emptying, actually right in the entrance of the parking lot there by the Rite Aid Pharmacy. Other than that, they don't want trash bins along Brown Street and that area down in the Wickford area. Because if somebody doesn't get there to clean it immediately and it's overflowing, who's going to take that responsibility? And what happens over the weekends when everybody's parking and cleaning out their cars and the businesses are busy because they have walking and street traffic in the summers? So I just know from those conversations, and I'm not saying we shouldn't have trash receptacles, please don't misconstrue my comments, but I just wondered why other communities don't have them. And I just went to my own community in which I work and asked.
Mike, do I need to add it to the agenda? Because we've had too much discussion. I didn't mean to solicit this much conversation.
Responding to the manager's report. The manager's
Okay.
report,
Okay. I just didn't mean to open a can of worms. But to Meg's point, I did just want to point out that the EDC conducted their study. They looked at East Greenwich and Westerly, and both of those downtown districts did provide trash receptacles and certain services, and I think that's where their recommendations came from. I don't know, we can always circle back and ask them why they didn't focus on North Kingstown, but the study the results that they gave us were based on those two communities.
I only looked at North Kingstown because I'm down in Wickford every day,
Right.
every single day, so that's why I just looked there and wanted to. Okay, anything else, Steve?
No, that's about it.
Okay, then if there's no other comments, we'll move on to the...
All set, thank you.
Okay. How about, let's move on to item number 12, which are appointments. We did discuss this in the work session, so...
I'll make a resolution appointing Kenneth Burke, Kateri Collins, Jen Judge, and David Hamill to the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee. I'm not sure when those terms expire, but 2 years from now, I imagine.
Could I
Maybe
ask that
staggered?
maybe we make an amendment to that, because we had discussed in the work session, because this is the time that everybody's out walking and biking, that maybe Dale advertise one more time so that we can...
That as well.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
Second, I just wish Kenny was in the room for this. Poor guy biked here just for this.
All those in favor?
I just have a comment. I
Yes,
want
go
to
ahead.
want to be sure that I think it's great that they can get started to work, but we really need to get at least that fifth person soon because they're going to start to work on their goals, and that committee should have a full complement at least of the minimum.
And with an even person, you don't always get an even,
Yeah.
you need an odd vote.
I want them to get going, but I want them to get going with a full complement, so let's get it
Yeah.
out there that there's an opening. And
This week, I think an ad's going to run, potentially, or, okay.
It doesn't say on the... Okay.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Seeing none, motion carries. Move-
Also a reappointment, I believe,
Okay.
to the Conservation Commission. We haven't gotten feedback from one of the members. Let's just do the reappointment of Lorraine Joubert, who wishes to be reappointed to the Conservation Commission, and that would be for a term expiring in September of 2019.
2020?
Or 2020, it's 3 years, sorry.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you. Any other appointments? Okay, let's move on to item E, 13E, a resolution authorizing the approval of resolutions as shown on Exhibit 1 in the agenda package that everybody has received and as prepared by the Bond Council, authorizing the advancement of funds from the town treasury and subsequent reimbursement from the bond proceeds for school capital improvements, school community gymnasium, and capital transportation improvements, as further described again in a memorandum from our finance director to the town manager dated July 5th, 2017, entitled A Request for Resolution to Approve Reimbursements from the Bond Proceeds.
As noted in Trish's memorandum of July 5th, there are 5 different bonds that need a authorization from the council by resolution. Those 5 resolutions are included as Exhibit 1 to the agenda this evening. As noted in the memorandum, we're anticipating selling $5,550,000 in municipal bonds. The tentative date at this point is August 8th of this year. The bonds we're seeking would be bank-qualified public offerings for competitive sale. The bank-qualified and non-qualified have a range of about 10 to 20 basis points different. So if we can go with a qualified, we're looking to be able to save 10 to 20 basis points. The Bond Council has drafted those resolutions. I'd ask the Council to adopt them as presented in Exhibit 1 and as presented on the agenda under the resolution for this item.
Do I have a motion on the table?
Motion to approve item 13E is presented.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any oppositions? Seeing none, motion carries. Moving on to F, which is a resolution authorizing the town manager to enter into and execute a 2-year solid waste and recycling service agreement with the Rhode Island Resource Recovery Corporation in Johnston for the disposal of municipal solid waste and recyclables for a period running from July 1st, 2017 through June 30th, 2019, and is further described in a memorandum from the Public Services Director to the Town Manager dated July 5th, Rhode Island Resource Recovery Corporation Municipal Solid Waste and Recycling Service Agreement.
The only place in Rhode Island that municipal waste can be disposed of is at the Resource Recovery Facility. The fee structure is established through Resource Recovery. The next 2 years, the price will be $39.50. We have been paying $32 per ton for municipal waste, I believe, for probably over the last 20 years. This is the first fee increase that we're seeing. Next year, we'll also see another increase where the $39.50 will go up to $47. Since we have no other way to get rid of the municipal waste, I'd ask Council's approval to be able to execute the contract as presented by Resource Recovery.
Motion to approve item 13F is presented.
Second with a comment, a question actually. In view of the fact that the fees are going to go up substantially over the life of this contract, is the Conservation Commission working on any effort to increase our recycling to maybe reduce the tonnage of waste? Or
We've got a considerable reduction in the waste at this point. I think that the Conservation Commission has been looking more toward the area of commercial recycling when they were looking at the bag issue. But I can get an update from them as far as what steps, if any, they're taking. And we also have a recycling coordinator. I can ask to give you a report that'll give you some statistics as to what's the volume of materials that we're processing and how much of it's recycling materials that are going out.
Right. Okay. Great. Thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second.
Yep.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? No. Seeing none, motion carries.
Meg, since before you close the meeting, since Kenny is back in the room, do you want to recap what?
Sure. I know you were out there, but basically what we've done is we've approved each of the 4 applicants to start with the pedestrian bikeability and walkability committee. And we've also asked Dale to advertise in the paper this week, which will be out this week on Thursday, I believe, on Thursday, accepting open positions again, because now is the time. Sometimes if you start this really early in the season, people aren't always biking and walking as much as they do in the summer. So while the summer's here and the weather is good, Dale's going to have that advertised on Thursday. So we have that 5th person, because sometimes it's hard to make decisions with only 4 people, because if you get that split. But we're working, because we're anxious to get that started. Excellent. Good. Great. No problem. At this point in time, I will entertain a motion from the table so that we can close the public aspect of this meeting so that we can go into a closed executive session. So do I have a motion to close the public?
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I make a motion we go into closed executive session pursuant to Rhode Island General Law 42-46-5A1 to discuss matters pertaining to personnel reemployment agreement for Stephen A. Alfred, Town Manager.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Roll call, I
Aye.
believe. Right? No?
It's been a tradition for you to do a roll call. There's actually no legal requirement. You can just all say aye.
Great.
Or nay, as you.
We're all here.
Tell me how to think, Mike.
Aye.
Aye.
Recess to closed executive session. I have paperwork everywhere. I don't even know where.